The biggest offensive mismatch in today's NFL is the tight end position. Looking into summer scouting, how good can the potential 2024 tight end class be? We'll list all the names next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Oh, no. I'm going to say what's up, family. I studied on myself. What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And always with me, the champ is here, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, and yes, 2019 national champ. But you know why we're here, man? Champ talk. And champ talk around the NFL draft, man. Me, myself, Damian Parsons, we're here to bring you championship level content surrounding the NFL draft, man. But listen, like we said, we've been doing introductions, right? Introducing you into this 2024 NFL draft class, not so much as positional rankings, but just giving you the names out there. We know there's been, each position has that highlight name, but man, this is such a deep class that we're so excited about. DP already made his declaration on the last segment that he thinks the wide receiver class will be better this year than what it was this past year. And who knows? But we're talking tight end, so we may feel the same exact way about this tight end class because we know, and we're going to start with Brock Bowers, man, a guy who's been deemed one of the best football players in college football since he stepped on the field as a freshman, right? And it's finally that time. It's his junior year. He will be draft eligible. So, DP, I want you to discuss Brock Bowers a little bit, not so much as a film evaluation, right? But more so, the player and just his status and the big scheme of things, right? Because this has been the highest rated tight end, consistently that we've seen since Kyle Pitts. And you think about Vernon Davis, right? Like long time ago. So just talk about Brock Bowers and how that sets the stage for this upcoming year.
Yeah, Keith. Shout out to our everydayers, man. The people that listen to us every Monday through Friday. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every single day of the week. But guys, with Brock Bowers, he is everyone's tight end one. People been like that whole 3-year rule. He's what every once in a while there's a prospect that comes through college football where everyone's like, all right, can we get rid of the 3-year rule so he can play right now? Like, so he can play after year one. He's been one of those guys, Keith. Family, he's been one of those guys, like you said, since his freshman year. And the crazy thing about it, at 6'4", 230 pounds, he's such a dynamic receiver, man. So it's like what he's going to bring to an offense is going to be receiving ability first. And, a lot of people will look at it like, yes, we want tight ends to be full scale run, like dominant run blockers. He's pretty decent. I won't say he's devastating. He's not, just somebody that's gonna. He's not, his former teammate, Darnell Washington. He's not that type of blocker, but a guy that's going to be used in a multitude of ways, man. Todd Monken, who was there last year, moved him all over the field. And right now, when you look at what he brings to the table, it's hard to argue that anybody else is in that stratosphere to really step into the room and say, look at me, I can be the tight end one. Because right now, this has been the guy that people have been looking at for the past 3 years.
Yeah, so DP, this is going to be the question, all right? Everybody's going to sit there and say, okay, he's good. But are we talking legendary, right? We're just off the heels of the NBA lottery. And I forgot, was it Woj, the Woj bomb? He talked
Yeah.
and he said that is it Wimba?
Wimby, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't care about him no more because the Pistons don't have anywhere near of drafting a
Oh well,
kid.
come on, you can't,
So
you
I
can't, you
don't care.
still can
I
care
don't
about
care
him.
about him. I
You
don't
can
care about
still
him. You know what I
listen.
mean?
What
If
if he
I,
get traded to the Pistons in 5 years? You never know. You never know,
then
man. You
he'll be
still
on
can
my
care about
radar. Then
it.
he'll be on my
You still
radar.
can care about it. We can't just throw a guy away. You threw the guy away. But what I'm trying to say is that the statement that Woj made about him was he was basically the best prospect in any team sport ever, right?
Oh
My
yeah,
question is this: Is Brock Bowers the best tight end we've ever seen in college football? Like that's because that's the type of hype that is coming out of there. Like even with
yeah,
Kyle Pitts, right? Kyle Pitts from the year before he was draft eligible, it was like, oh, this is a good player. And then it turned into like, oh, well, this is, a freak athlete. But I don't think there was still the same hype that there was surrounding Brock Bowers, right? So
yeah.
that's I think that's what the people want to know is like, what am I getting? And then you talk about NFL comps, right? You're talking about is this George Kittle, Travis Kelce, or is this just something we've never seen before in a tight end prospect?
Man, and that's the question. And I like the question. I think for me, Keith, looking at what especially Kyle Pitts at his best, I think he's better than what Brock Bowers is. You know what I mean? Kyle Pitts coming out, being 6'6", 240 pounds, and then talking to DBs who had to face him, and it was like, bro, he's like corners, like SEC corners, Keith, that had to line up like when he would flex outside as an X receiver, and I got to get up in his grill and play press man. It's like even the taller, bigger DBs that I talked to was like, bro, he's a different animal. It was like he doesn't look as strong maybe on TV. You know what I mean? When you're just looking at his frame, it's like, bro, but when you get hands on and he's clubbing and ripping and fighting through, it's like he's strong, his contact balance, and he's an incredible athlete, and he can run routes for a big 6'6" guy as well. And I always go back to what he did against LSU, man. Like, you know what I mean? When Florida that year, Kyle Trask was, they were up there and they played, I think, was it Bama in the SEC championship game? And that year they played LSU. And I remember Stingley a couple times being matched up on Kyle Pitts one-on-one in press man coverage. And Kyle Pitts beat him. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like, that's where it really kind of, all right, man. Like, this ain't the average tight end. You know what I mean? To be doing things like that. Don't get me wrong. Brock Bowers does some similar things, but it's a different, there's levels to it in my opinion. But I love Brock Bowers and the potential that he has. His ball skills, the receiving ability is there for him as well. Like I said, he's 6'3", what is he? 6, I believe it's 6'3", almost 6'4", 230. And when you see him, you see a guy that literally plays the ball like a receiver down the field. But in terms of these two prospects, he's tight end one for me right now. But Kyle Pitts was a different cat, man. That was, to me, that was just a different. There's a reason why he went top 5. You know what I mean? There's a reason why. Now, granted, the Falcons have not used him like a top 5 pick, but there's a reason he went top 5.
Yeah, nah, man, I feel you. So look, this the thing, DP. Looking at this situation, you had to talk about Brock Bowers compared to tight ends in other classes, right? Because that's where the conversation is. But what I want to do is this, because this is a good tight end class, like a really good. When you look at the names and you look at the depth and you look at the athleticism, this is a good tight end class. So what I want to do, DP, is this next segment coming up, I want to compare him to other tight ends in this class. And we've been talking all week. Hey, who can challenge for that number 1 tight end spot? I think there are some names out there that are going to be rather intriguing because of the hybrid situation and because of the athletes that are in this class. So coming up next, man, we're going to talk about some of those guys that, if they don't necessarily just overtake Brock Bowers as tight end 1, they are doggone sure they're going to push him, right? They're going to push him at tight end 1. And these are guys that are in good situations.
Guys, if you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, and you need to give the best tasting protein bar ever a try, and that's Built Bars. If you're like me, you want to make healthier snack choices, I promise you, and you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just a thing for you guys. Listen to me. Built Bars and Built Puffs are healthy and they taste amazing. And the reason why they taste amazing is because they're made out of 100% real chocolate. And that fact, you don't even think that they're good for you guys. So you can tap into some of the unbelievable flavors, guys, like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. You know that's my favorite. So listen, you can do like me. Go to your local Walmart. You can get a 4-bar box. Just go to the pharmacy section, and they got them there with the other protein bars. But that's the one that you want to go for. Or if you want to buy them in bulk, if you're more of a bulk person, go to Sam's Club. Get you a 13-bar box of the specialty flavors, guys. There's no harm, no foul in that as well. But as always, you can go to builtbar.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Keith, I like to call it challenging the throne. These other tight ends, Keith, that they may not be in the discussion right now, but if they have the type of seasons with their athletic profiles, they could change the narrative a little bit. And I want to ask you about Jatavia Sanders, the Texas tight end. We talked about Quinn Ewers and even Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, but they got a tight end at Texas too.
Yeah, no. So I I think Jatavia Sanders is gonna put up numbers, man. And we always talk about, right, receivers, tight ends being reliable on the quarterback. Quinn Ewers is a guy that's going to be able to get him the football. And watching this offensive design, he did it last year. This is a guy that is a good athlete, right? So when you're talking about him catching the ball in the flats on those bootleg type situations, this is a guy that can immediately get upfield, get vertical. He can run past defenders. He's powerful. He's strong. He's another 245 type, pound type of athlete. So when you talk about it from that perspective, I think so, because when we look at Brock Bowers, what is Brock Bowers, in my opinion, when I see him, right, just surface level, best that is usually run after the catch situations, right, which is extremely important. But I think Jatavia Sanders can do that also. So if you're talking about a challenger, yes, I think Jatavia Sanders can work to kind of push, Brock Bowers some, because he's a highly talented football player too. And what we may be looking at him, I don't want to say it now because we still have to get into film evaluations, right, and really properly place these guys. But, you don't know if you're looking at tight end 1 and tight end 2, or you don't know if you're looking at 2 first-round tight ends, right, depending on how this class falls. So I definitely think Jatavia Sanders has a chance, right? He's going to be at another big-time program, right? Georgia's a big-time program. Texas is a big-time program, right? They both come from Jatavia Sanders come from a big time program, even in high school football. I believe he played at Denton Ryan, right? So a lot of big time football players come out of there, and he's going to have the opportunity to make plays in the middle of the field. Steve Sarkisian, he's going to dial it up for him, right? He's going to get him the football. He's going to be able to work the middle of the field. So Jatavia Sanders is definitely somebody that, our listeners and also we should, right, circle the name and be prepared, because he's a guy that has potential.
I'm excited to see what this young man is going to bring to the table in that Texas offense, Keith, because like you said, there's a lot of other weapons there. And typically when you're a tight end with a good quarterback and a lot of explosive weapons around you, that makes your job a lot easier to go out there and shine and showcase the full range of skills that you have to bring to the table. I want to talk about, he was at South Carolina the past couple of seasons, but he transferred, Jesus Christ, Florida State. My God.
They got another one.
What is going on? Like, they are the hotbed for transfers right now. Jaheem Bell transferring over from South Carolina to go over to Florida State, which we talked about Keon Coleman on the wide receiver episode. And yesterday he committed to Florida State. Jordan Travis, Heisman candidate, is shaping up to look that way if everything stays correct. But with Jaheem Bell, 6'3", 230, a 4.5 type of athlete. And Keith, you talk about versatility. Guys, like I saw this kid at South Carolina be used all over the field. Out wide, in the slot, as an H-back. They throw him in the backfield. And I'm going to tell you, and I want to listen, and shout out to my boy Michael Cole, because he who played for the New York Giants, and he told me, he said something about how dangerous this guy was when they had the scheme for him, was Aaron Hernandez. And I think about how Aaron Hernandez was moved around at Florida and with the New England Patriots when he was in the league. And I see similar usage with the Jaheem Bell. And he's dynamic in open space as well. A guy that doesn't mind carrying the football if you want to give him the football in the run game. You know what I mean? Not just out of a backfield lineup, but the jet sweeps and ghost motions and things like that. You can give him the manufactured touch and let him create yards after the catch. I'm excited to see what he can do. Again, now you got Jordan Travis. We didn't even get to running backs yet. We got that coming up next week. But you got running back there, Trey Benson, Jordan Travis at quarterback. You got Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson at wide receiver. This is another tight end who's in a really strong situation where he can go out there and defenses can't key on him, and he can go out there and ball.
Well, DP, I'm glad you brought up Johnny Wilson. I'm glad you brought him up because you know what? I used him in yesterday's episode. I'm gonna talk about him in this week's episode. I just watched him again, DP. I think we can talk about him as a tight. He can be. He's versatile, right? He can do both.
Yeah.
He can play wide receiver, but they're all going to be because when you think about the trend, right, that the tight end position has become, it's those wide receivers. We've seen it so many different times. I know that the Cardinals and I think the Panthers tried to do it with Stephon Sullivan. Then Dorial Green Beckham made that transition, right? So many like these big wide receivers that they're like, man. We don't know exactly what we're going to do as far as running routes.
Devin
We're going to kick,
Funchess.
Devin Funchess. We're going to just kick you inside. And I think Johnny Wilson, we don't know. Like he may come down to it, and he's listed as a tight end. Then now the question is this, and you just talked about who? You talked about Kyle Pitts. We talked about it last episode, right? It's very similar situation. So Johnny Wilson, I think, ironically enough, right? You mentioned him because there is tight end Jaheem Bell there, but it'll be interesting to see how the conversation starts to fold and it starts to unwind around Johnny Wilson because he has that, I think, athletic profile. He has everything to be able to challenge if he wants to be deemed and considered a tight end. It'll be fun, right? And I don't think he's going to lose money calling himself a tight end, right? Because like you said, we just seen Kyle Pitts. It's not like the running back situation where if you call yourself a running back, it's like, oh, well, you're not going into the second round. Or, just people, they tell you lose value. So I think with the tight end position is like, hey, like I can be the third wide receiver, or I can be the first tight end. So I think that's going to be so fun and interesting as we come down.
I like that, Keith. Now I'm gonna kick it back and ask this question: if he was deemed a tight end in this class, could he challenge a Brock Bowers and a Jatavia Sanders at the top?
I think that's my point. I think so because people are going to look at it as a real offensive weapon, and we keep going back to Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts was not a traditional tight end. He was just a really big wide receiver that people said he played tight end, right? Like, but do you trust Kyle Pitts to drive block people off the ball? No, that's not his game, right? And it's the same thing with Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson's not going to put his hand in the three-point stand and drive defensive ends off the football. But Kyle Pitts was 6'6", Johnny Wilson is 6'7", maybe 6'6", right? When official measurements come in, he was a good mover, contested catch, things like that. And I can see the same similar assets in Johnny Wilson. So I think that's a name when you invoke for the tight end. It'll be fun because we all know, like, being drafted and, when they get agents and things like that, it's about them positioning themselves to get drafted as high as possible, right? And if that's the case, where he could come in as the third, fourth, fifth wide receiver, or he can come in as the first or second tight end, you may see Johnny Wilson make that transition where, hey, I know I have to move inside and it's all good, but look what I can do. Look what I can potentially offer you. And Travis Kelce is paving the way for tight ends to really make some noise anyway, because he led a team, right, as the leading receiver, a Super Bowl team. So it's not a knock to be a tight end. But DP, there's one other name that I see you put down here, man. Michael Trigg. And this is an intriguing name. This is a guy, I think he was at USC and he transferred to Ole Miss. This wide open Lane Kiffin offense. I believe he got injured last year. I want to say he played a little, then he was injured, so he didn't play a whole lot. But another really good athlete, checks the box. I think another 6'4", 240-pound guy, vertical threat, run after the catch ability. Now, his situation as far as challenging, right? Because we know production matters. They have to figure this quarterback situation out. They just flat out have to get it figured out. I think they got Jackson Dart there, but then I want to say they got a couple transfers. I want to say
Spencer Sanders and Walker Howard.
Yeah. So that's going to be predicated on how they handle that, right? And what they do with that. But Michael Trigg is the athlete, and that's why I say this is a deep tight end class, because that's another guy that's a good athlete at the tight end position.
And I think, to your point, Keith, before we transition, there's an old phrase. I can't remember what coach said it, but there's an old phrase: when you have more than one quarterback, you have none. And for Ole Miss, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. And that situation could be so volatile because it could really derail what Michael Trigg could become this season and force him to possibly return in 2024 or transfer if they don't have the quarterback situation situated. But that's a name I wanted to invoke because he's got all the talent in the world. He was a big name guy when he was at USC, and he transferred to Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. I'm hoping that he can, I think he's only had a little over 100 yards in back-to-back seasons receiving. I want to see him at that 500 to 700 yard range and 8 touchdowns to be a red zone threat and just showcase that skill set and that athletic ability, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So look, man, that wraps up the challenges, right? Now the next segment, we're going to talk about guys that nobody pretty much knows about, that they're sitting in really good situations, right? That we say they sleeping on, they have no idea. If you don't know, now you know. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to talk about those guys coming up in our next segment because these are, like we said, deep tight end class. So we may still be talking about back in the second, third round tight ends because it's a very deep tight end class, good athletes. We want to bring these names up and kind of enlighten you on some of these guys.
You know the slogan, guys. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up on these sleepers, Keith. And one of the guys that he has not been able to get, like, there's been so much that's happened off the field for him. Eric Gilbert, man, transferring from Georgia. Was he at Florida first?
No,
I think
he was at LSU. He was at
LSU.
LSU.
That's right. He was at LSU.
So he did LSU. Then he did like a brief stint. I don't know if he was committed to Florida or he partially
Think
enrolled
so.
in Florida. Then he dipped out of there and then went to Georgia.
Went to Georgia. And I that first year, Keith, of him at LSU, I was like, this is not a tight end. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, this dude is too big to be moving this way, man. Like, you guys would most him into the flex him out in the slot and out wide, and he would run a variety of routes that a guy of his stature shouldn't be able to run so fluidly, and then to run after the catch ability he brought too. Like, this is we talked about it with Trigg. This is a good athlete, especially for his size, man. So I think the key for him, Keith, and any Nebraska fans that's listening, I think Nebraska being such a low-key situation, I think that bodes well for him. You know what I mean? I think that bodes the spotlight isn't on him no more. Like at Georgia, with championship pedigree, championship coach, all that type of stuff, the lights are bright, right? And maybe that just got to him and different things like that. Now you can kind of just be low-key. Go in, put your head down, work. You got a coach that's going to put you in good situations with this pro-style offense that Matt Rule is running. You got a quarterback that you really could trust to get you the football, and Jeff Sims and the run game and everything else. I think Eric Gilbert is one of those dark horses that people may just, I'm not going to say forget about or sleep on, Keith. It's just like, well, man, he can't get it together. You know what I mean? Kind of just like writing them off, like writing off a tax write-off. Like, you know what, whatever. It's done. And forget that it was ever a thing. I feel like that's what people have done to Eric Gilbert. And I just don't want people to do that because I believe that Nebraska could be a really good situation for this young man.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, I've seen him in person. I was there at LSU that year that he did play, right? So the one year that he did play college football, I was there. Exceptional athlete, hard worker, gets after it. Man, just he came in as a true freshman, right? And just dominated SEC level competition. So it's all left for him. It's all left for him. But man, I want to continue to throw out some names. We have Michigan tight end Eric All, right? We have Miami
Iowa.
He's at Iowa now.
Yeah.
He transferred. Yeah, I'm sorry. He transferred. Iowa tight end Eric All, and we know that Iowa, they just put out tight ends. They have minimal production, but they always go top 2 rounds. So I don't get it. I don't know how they even get good, right? Because they can't catch the football because the quarterback don't get.
Like, how do you keep recruiting tight ends to Iowa that you don't throw to?
I don't understand it, man. I don't understand it. Penn State tight end Theo Johnson, if he's still at Penn State, that's another name. Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. It's another really good athlete. Miami, they took a step back offensively. Hopefully they can get that thing going this year because this is a guy that, like I said, really good athlete, can definitely make some plays out there. Then I want to talk about Utah tight end. Utah obviously had the first tight end off the board this year. This year, they have Brant Keith, another guy that made plays last year, big body frame, can do multiple things. Early on, right, some people were like, okay, who's the better one at first? So I think this is like I said, man, this is a deep tight end class. We're talking about these guys in our third segment of our podcast, but some of these guys can definitely challenge for that, that first round of tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4 type situation.
No, the battles, similar to the wide receiver discussion we had yesterday, that discourse, the battle for that 2, 3, and 4 spot. Oh, it's going to be war. It's going to be such a fun battle to watch. I even thought of just a couple of names. Bryson Nesbitt over at North Carolina, 6'5", 230, good athlete, and he's got Drake May throwing the football. And I think, of course, especially with Josh Downs and Antoine Green both departing to the NFL, like UNC and Drake May is going to need someone else to step up. And I think Nesbitt could be one of those guys in this offense, Keith. And then one of the guys that I had the pleasure of studying, I really liked him last year. And I wasn't mad at him for not coming out. And that's Benjamin Urosic over at Stanford, 6'4", 240, another decent athlete himself. Guy with good catch radius, can really work the middle of the field, press the, you think about the hard play action and hitting the seam routes and, being able to catch the ball helmet or higher, extend from his body. He does that well. And for a 6'4", almost 6'5" guy, I think he runs pretty decent routes as well. So this is another tight end that we got to keep our eyes on as well in this class. And like I said, at the end of the day, this is a really deep class in terms of just raw talent, man. Austin Stogner, I think he's still in school. So it's like there's a lot of guys. Yeah. There's a lot of Austin Stogner's been in school for a while because I know he's dealt with those concussions. Yep. So like, a guy that we didn't think was gonna, but he's a really talented kid. He's just got to stay healthy, and concussions they're hard to get away from. But you look at these other schools. Brevin Spanford, that's a guy I remember hearing his name last year for the Minnesota Gophers, man. So 6'7", 270, big guy, big physical guy, man. So you look at this tight end class, and I'm gonna tell you something, guys. It's I don't think it's been this way in the past couple of drafts that we would have consecutive, quality tight end draft classes. And I'm excited for that, guys, because like I said, it's not something that you see every year to year. Sometimes we get those kind of weird classes where people put somebody at tight end 1 and everybody else don't know who actually tight end 1 is because it's not a really good group. And then we had the group like last year, and then this type of group as well. That the sky's the limit for all these guys. But as always, man, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Happy Friday, by the way. Listen, guys, as we always tell you, you are not only family, you're everydayers, and we appreciate you to the fullest. In terms of Keith Sanchez, when it comes on the Twitter, you can find him at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again on Monday to kick off next week on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.